Hey everybody, it's Briar, Harvey, and welcome to another episode of Systems Are Messy. This is the World Ending Edition. We are here with Carrie Caulfield Arick, and she is going to tell us about her Notion system. So buckle in, because I'm sure it's going to be exciting. Tell us about yourself, Carrie.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me, Briar. As you said, I'm Carrie Caulfield Arick. I run a podcast editing, production, and coaching company called Yaya Podcasting. I've been doing it for about 3 years professionally, but I've been podcasting since 2014. So we really believe in empowering our clients to make meaningful impact one episode, one listener at a time. Uh, and I just absolutely love my job. I started as a freelancer where I didn't really need systems. Not at all. So easy when you have like 2 clients.
Right?
But once you start having multiple balls in the air and start doing very different things, you definitely need systems. So I have actually used just about every system around. I started with spreadsheets in Google Drive. I moved to Trello. I tried Asana. I've tried Monday. I've tried pretty much everything under the sun. And
Monday has possibility, I will say. I like the way that one works, especially for team management. But if you don't have a large team, then Monday is overkill. So,
right. And then I have, I tried Airtable and all those things, and I just couldn't stick to any of them. There was nothing that I used consistently. I'd fall out of the habit of using them, and it just made me feel like I was always playing catch up because I was not organized. And once you reach a certain threshold of clients and, different, because I do the editing, production, and the coaching, I've got to keep track of all this stuff. And I hit about 10 clients and I was like, this is crazy. I don't know what I'm doing. And, you start to make mistakes, and it's just, everything has the potential to be a disaster if you're not organized. So I had heard on a podcast, I think it was She Podcast, and they started talking about Notion. And I was like, okay, I will give this a try. I fell in love. I absolutely fell in love, and I have been using it consistently ever since. I use it every day. I've got the desktop app. I find joy in making new boards. Like now I'm, making new boards for everything. This year I'm in the process of putting in all my onboarding materials onto Notion, and I'm building up client boards specifically for clients to use so they can track the progress of the work. So
at this point in time, all of my client portals are built out in Notion. It just comes standard as anything that I do with working with you now. We're working in Notion, and you'll either use it or don't, but most of them have really come around, and most of them have downloaded the app on their own and are now doing things in Notion. And I'm like, yes, I'm converting a whole slew of minions.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was funny because I was at PodFest and I was talking to a fellow podcast editor, and he used Notion. So we spent an hour at PodFest comparing Notion boards, and he was showing me things I didn't know. It was like incredible. So I don't know how they designed Notion, but every time you make a new board, you just feel good. And I just want to sit there and look at it.
It's always remarkably entertaining to me. It always is fun. It always feels easy, and I know there are a lot of complaints about it as a system because, let's be real, just like any other software, there are complaints about it as a system. But overall, there are things that I'm willing to overlook in order to use it because it makes my life so much better.
Yeah, and I think my big thing is that I am not by nature an organized person at all. I am a big picture person. So keeping track of the details is not really easy for me. And Notion has changed that, where I'm like, ooh, this detail needs to go into my Notion board. And I think if you're somebody who really does have a problem with organization, that Notion is probably a good solution for you. Simply, I can't tell you what exactly it is that makes it work
I
when you're
can.
like me.
It's that
Okay.
it speaks your language. So one of my clients says to me, "Did you know that I think in pictures?" And I went, "Oh, that's interesting." So as she's organizing her Notion, there's a lot of visual cues. There are pictures and emojis, and Notion speaks the language you speak when you need it to organize for you.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I use emojis
Hmm.
and I love the board covers and the color. You're able to tag by
Hmm.
color,
Hmm.
and that really works well for me. And I do use, I'll show you my notebook where I make myself a to-do list every week, and I have these little color coded post-it
Hmm.
tabs, and I can coordinate that with Notion really easily.
Is that kind of bullet journal style there?
Yeah, I guess you would say. I was just a list. I don't actually put bullet points, but I just make,
But it's just a list.
yeah, it's just a list, and it's divided by the production element and then the administration. Um,
For a lot of us, that written down thing is still an important component. We remember it better when we write it down. So
yes.
I use index cards,
Okay. I
and
do
then I
that when I,
tear them in half when I'm done with them. That's how
oh,
I,
that seems very satisfying.
oh, it is actually very satisfying. Oh, I'm done with this. Rip.
I use index cards and colored Sharpies when I'm designing like funnels or like in the
Mhm.
customer journey. And I will just, on my bedroom wall, I'll just put on some music and I'll start designing those things out with just, old fashioned index cards, markers, and tape.
Yep. The old school ways die hard, don't
Right.
they?
Right. And when you're visual, that makes a lot of sense
Mhm.
because you can actually see it. And I I edit for a user experience tech podcast.
Mhm.
And that's something they recommend in their workflow to design customer experiences. So
Yeah, take it to paper and pen and old fashioned,
yeah.
even tech people will say that. So, can we take a look? Show us around.
Yes, yes. Let me share my screen here. Let me make this full screen because I rarely ever, it's weird. I rarely ever use Notion in full screen. I feel like I don't have to because it's that easy to.
There's a lot of size flexibility. I have a very large 22-inch monitor. So I have built mine out so there's like 4 giant columns. But Notion works really well to shrink it down so that when I'm on my tablet or I'm on my phone, it
Right.
still works seamlessly.
Yeah. So can you see my screen
Yep.
yet? Okay. So I'm going to take you. So this is my team home. So if you
Okay.
come in as a contractor, you'll very easily find our mission statements. And then how to use Notion. So
Mm.
I just have little boards where I have embedded Dropbox videos, and I don't
Oh,
know.
cool.
Yeah, and it's just for me that's just super simple because that's where I keep them, and then they can, a lot of my people are outside of the U.S., so Dropbox just makes it simple. We don't have to worry about any compatibility issues.
Hmm.
Um, and just I like having the mission statement simply because it reminds us why we do what we do, and I think
Hmm.
that's very important. um, and then I have for my whole team, I have all our clients, and I have information that I need and information that they need. So, and it starts with, are they active, and if they are they actively putting out content? Uh, and then again, it's color coded, which
Hmm.
I absolutely love. Um, and then this is what I really love is that even though I have a spreadsheet view, I can go very easily and open up a card with all their information, and I don't have to hunt for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I have, occasionally with my contractors, since we're always sharing files, sometimes I put up the wrong file. So instead of them having to like alert me that it's the wrong file, can you upload or put the right link in for the correct file, they can just immediately go to the folder that they need and pull out that right file. And that has been something that has just saved me a ton of time in team management.
I really like that. That's a great system.
Well, thank you. And then I have their common problems so that the team can look and see exactly when they're working on a person's podcast what they can expect. So that, again, saves them time, saves us that communication, like, okay, this person's audio is not good or they're having this particular problem. They can go check this and say, yeah, that's going to be a problem I'm going to have to deal with. And it, again, saves us all time from the back and forth. And then also I keep track of what I'm working on them with, that they have coaching, which again, because I have so many clients, I don't have to worry about, first of all, I don't have to ask them because that doesn't look good. It doesn't
What
look
are we
good.
working on
Yeah,
today? I've forgotten. No,
right.
I won't lie. I say those words fairly often.
I hate that because, again, you have got to send that email or send that, make that call. And I always like to be prepared when I do coaching calls with them. So this just saves me from having to ask those repetitive questions. And same with, I have for podcasting, I even have like how they record their podcast, what they're using to record their podcast, software, hardware, how they're doing it. Cause I have like a mix of in-person and live when they're publishing. So that also helps the team know if I put a file for you to work on in our system, you definitely need to have it done by the next or before the publishing day.
Right.
So, and then I have the usual due date. So again, there are no questions. And if I forget to put it in due date, which I usually do, again, they can easily check. So, and then I have that's how disorganized I am, because I didn't go through this line by line. But that's how Notion, really makes sense for me, because I don't need to necessarily, I can do it my way.
You can.
Right. And then I just have their package information too. So I never forget, or my assistant never forgets, how we need to build them, because that's important. And then what that scope of work really is, because that's another really important thing to remember when you're working with clients is, and then once you get to a certain level of, there's no way you can keep track of all that in your head. You just can't.
So that being said, how often do you feel like things slip through the cracks for you?
Not very often. I mean, so now it's like these little tiny details that I am able to we need to put this into our system, because so now we're finding those little tiny customer service details that we weren't seeing before we were using Notion, because we now have this system. And now we can really get to that high level of customer service. So those little tiny touches that the customer doesn't think about, but appreciates when it happens.
Yeah, that's definitely been true for me too, I think. Awesome. Do you keep any of your personal stuff in here as well, or is it just business?
I am using this mostly for business. I do have some personal projects in here that I am building out. I will be helping with the podcast editors conference for next year, assuming the world doesn't end. So I'm
to be determined.
Yeah. So I'm working on building that out. And then just like help that I've been giving friends, I have been, working on. So I take my notes that and I didn't mention, but I also use Google Keep on my phone to take notes. And then I will have my assistant plug that into Notion.
Got it. Got it.
So, but I have I'll show you our team board, which is a Trello-esque board. So this is our team board.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really simple. It's, what they need to do first.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the priority things. What's next in the queue. And so then I don't need to necessarily assign anything to anyone. I can put the work in here and they can just grab it at their leisure. And if it, has a due date, then they know, well, I can get it done by this date. I will take this one. If they can't do it, they leave it for the, another person. So really, I mean, it's just really simple. And then they can also, they can communicate.
Mm-hmm.
So which is great. Because the other problem I was having before Notion was that I was getting messages on Instagram, I was getting messages on Facebook, I was getting messages in email.
Right. And it's so hard to keep track of it all in all of those different places.
Right.
Now it's all here. I mean, and it's not that I don't still communicate in those other places, but if it's related to a task, it goes on the card, right?
Right. Absolutely. And then we can communicate back and forth. We have everything we need.
Mm-hmm.
And they can post, he's got a screenshot here, but they can also post audio clips of, what they're talking about. It's so easy. And I can also give them instructions based on the client's needs. So yeah, and it just works. I mean, it's super simple. They can work, they can decide their own schedule essentially. And I don't have to worry about it. Like, this just cuts down on so much.
So tell me what you wish you did better in here.
That is a very good question. I wish that I did the CRM better. So I wish that I use the CRM more actively. I wish I was a little bit better. This is probably the one area, it's not just Notion, it's the one area of my business that I'm maybe not so great at. And I'm still trying to figure out like how to use it the best way, how to set it up, So there's a lot that goes into a CRM.
There really is. And it takes time. I do not use mine as much as I would like to either. And I find that I have to assign my cards to be made. I have to, I link to them when I do like interviews and things, but I don't always interact with them when I have other conversations elsewhere. And that's what I have a real problem with.
Yeah. And
I
think
intuitive yet.
Right. And I think that's the problem that I'm having. It is just that the notes on the conversations. And another thing I would really like to implement is, because when I do potential client calls, like consultations, I create a Zoom recording in the hopes that I will transcribe it and pull out the relevant information and then plug it into Note. And I absolutely do not do that, or have my assistant do that. I mean, I've got the idea. It's
never happened.
Right. It's just never happened. So, I mean, it's there if I ever need to go back to it, but yeah, that is, a failing on my part. So.
Well, tell me what you do well then.
I think that I do the team workflow really well. I mean, that really works. I do not have to worry about, every Monday I put in the week's work and boom, it's done. Like, I just start getting work back from my team.
Tell me more about that review process. What's that look like for you? So it's Mondays?
Yes. So Mondays and, of course, when the clients get the file. So I
Right.
will, every Monday morning, I make my list. And this is based on what I expect. It's not necessarily based on what we have. So as I make my list, I have Notion open and I am looking for those files or having my assistant put those files in there because we're face to face together.
Mm-hmm.
And so we will set all that up on Monday and then we will go through and review every day, essentially. Like every morning, we go and look at that board. We make sure that the clients that need to get their files have their files. If I have an administrative board as well, where they're just weekly tasks, like if the client hasn't given the file by Wednesday, email the client.
So how long does that take? The once weekly and then the morning review? It's
It's quick.
nothing, right?
It's quick. It's because I think that Monday morning thing, I mean, I may, that's why I have my coffee and make my list essentially. And
Yeah, I enjoy that review
yeah,
process at
I
this
did.
point in time.
It makes me feel stable. I don't know, I don't have, if I don't do that, if I happen to skip that for some reason or, what have you, I feel stressed. Like I literally feel stressed and I will not be able to go to bed that night.
Oh no, sometimes I have to do it at the end of the day. I call that the ta-da list so that you can process what has been done and relieve yourself that in fact you were not a useless blob and you did get many things done that day.
Yes. Yeah. I'll have to remember that. But you can do it on your phone in bed.
Mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm.
you don't need to bring, I don't need to bring my computer up.
Nope.
I can just sit there. And I've made Notion boards on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's, and for me, something like that for me, I don't think I would have done that in any other, I certainly would have done it in Trello.
Oh God, can you imagine even trying to look at boards on Trello, the more you have, the more exhausting it is on that teeny tiny phone screen. Wow.
Yeah, it is difficult.
So is there anything special that you are working on right now or client slots that you have open? With the end of the world coming, everyone's going to need a new podcast to listen to. So
very true. I am working with Johnson & Johnson's Janssen Pharmaceuticals on the infectious disease podcast, which I think will be really helpful for a lot of people. It's really informational. So that will be coming out very soon, in the next couple of weeks. So definitely, it's called
we'll drop the links in the show notes.
Right, ID Viewpoints. And then I am doing a speaker series for my community of female podcast editors. So if you are a female podcast editor professionally, or even if you're editing for yourself, we're going to have some great apocalypse distracting speakers come in and talk to us. And that's at on Facebook at facebook.com/group/justbusters. And we call ourselves Justbusters because we are making people aware that we as women qualify our expertise when we shouldn't by using the word just. So it is our mission as podcast editors to remove that from the podcast language.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I am taking coaching clients at the moment and doing consultations, not just for independent podcasters, but also if you're a marketing agency. I will have experience working with marketing agencies. I know what the problems are there. I know the bureaucracy and the politics, and I can help you set up a podcasting program that you can either sell to a specific client or white label, add into your services. And I will give you everything you need so that you don't need to worry about it and you've got the best information possible. So,
Awesome. Carrie, thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
no, just get organized. Don't backtrack like I did. Just if you're starting a business or you're in this online space, even if you're working from home and looking for a system to help keep your day to day, a menu. I mean, there's so many things you could use
Mhm,
something like Notion for, like menu planning and
mhm,
all sort running household
mhm. Oh yeah,
things.
I do all of those things in my note.
Right, right. I know. I think I probably should too. And maybe I'll have time during the apocalypse to set that all up. But
That's the thing, though. It all takes time to build out, and I have been working on my Notion consistently pretty much every day for about 7, 9 months now. It's been a while. So the more you spend in there, the better it'll be built out.
right. So invest that time on the front end so you can save it in the
Mhm.
future, because it really will save you time.
Well, guys, thank you so much for coming. Stay safe, stay sane, wash your hands. And apparently, what I have learned from this particular episode is that you got to stop touching your face. Holy crap.
I know it's hard.
Hit the like button, go ahead and subscribe, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.